Welcome to Rewatch or Return, the podcast where we put movies through the ultimate test across 10 universal categories to decide, does it call for a definite rewatch, a definite trip to the return bin, or does our subjectivity cause it to fall somewhere in between? Today, this week, we are going to look at Ninja Turtles 1990, the live-action Ninja Turtles movie that was, I guess, the first live-action Ninja Turtles movie. Came out, I guess, 3 years or so after I was born. I don't know exactly the date, but this year it would be 35 years old. So as we continue with anniversaries, I just went with this one. And I missed it. It was re-released in the theater, and I think it was like on a Sunday afternoon and then on Wednesday. There were the only 2 times that my local theater was showing it. So I was really excited to go, and because it was Sunday and I had church stuff, I was unable to make it right after church on that day, and then on Wednesday I had, other stuff I had to do too with church, and so I missed it on both days, but that doesn't mean that I haven't seen it plenty, or unable to watch it and do this. I'm just sad I missed it in the theater, because clearly in 1990 I don't believe that my parents were taking me to watch a live-action Ninja Turtles movie. I don't think I really understood Ninja Turtles at 3 years old, probably. Anyhow, with that said, we're going to move right on into fast-forward facts. Alright, let's take a totally tubular trip back to 1990 when 4 sewer-dwelling, pizza-loving mutant turtles made their big screen debut in one of the most unexpected box office hits of its era. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, directed by Steve Barron, blended martial arts, comic book grit, and animatronic magic to bring Leonardo, Michelangelo, Donatello, and Raphael from Saturday morning cartoons and underground comics straight into live-action reality. And it was no joke. This was actually the highest-grossing independent film of all time until the Blair Witch Project came along nearly a decade later. Based more closely on the original darker-toned TMNT comic books by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird than the light-hearted cartoon, the film kept a surprisingly serious tone, especially compared to what kids expected. It tackled themes of family, loyalty, and identity, all while delivering some impressive martial arts action in rubber suits. Full rubber suits, that is. The suits themselves were a major achievement. Created by Jim Henson's Creature Shop, each turtle costume featured animatronic facial expressions controlled remotely, with puppeteers syncing lip movements in real time. It was one of the last major projects Jim Henson worked on before his passing, and he reportedly had mixed feelings about the film's level of violence, but there's no denying the technical craftsmanship. Each turtle had a different stunt actor in the suit and a separate voice actor. Michelangelo, for instance, was voiced by Robbie Rist, while Raphael was voiced by Josh Pius, the only turtle whose suit actor and voice were the same person. And yes, Kevin Clash, famous as the voice of Elmo, puppeteered Splinter, the turtle's wise rat sensei. Judith Hoag played April O'Neil, the intrepid reporter caught in the middle of the Foot Clan's crime wave, while Elias Kotoas became a fan favorite as Casey Jones, the hockey mask vigilante with a love for sports gear and sarcasm. Here's a shell-shocking fact, though. Major studios passed on the film, fearing it wouldn't work. So Golden Harvest, best known for Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan films, and New Line Cinema stepped in and struck gold. The film had a modest budget of around $13.5 million, but it raked in over $200 million worldwide, becoming an instant cult classic. The film's New York setting was actually mostly shot in Wilmington, North Carolina, with clever set design and matte paintings used to replicate cityscapes, and that iconic underground lair built entirely on a soundstage. The success of the movie kicked off a full-blown franchise, 2 sequels, which were The Secret of the Ooze in 1991 and Turtles in Time in 1993, then a live-action TV series, video games, toys, and eventually reboots. But many fans still consider the 1990 original the best, blending grit, goofiness, and surprisingly good practical effects that still hold up decades later. And one last fast fact before we ninja vanish, the film's ending features a rooftop fight with Shredder that was originally meant to be even longer, but it was trimmed for pacing and for the PG rating. So whether you grew up yelling cowabunga, or you're meeting the Turtles for the first time, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles remains a radical slice of 90s cinema, equal parts streetwise, shell-kicking, and sentimental. All right, with that down, let's move right into what the critics had to say about this one. This is where we kind of look at the top 10 critic reviews on Rotten Tomatoes and see what they had to say. The way this works, typically, I go into the top reviews. You can go in and just look at all critic reviews, but I typically grab the top ones, so I know that I'm getting kind of the same, going in for the same ones each time, I suppose. But the critics gave this one on the tomato meter a 46%, but your fan score on the popcorn meter is 81%. There's a, kind of like I had talked about on a previous episode, there are a lot of times very large gaps between your audience score, who are the people that want to watch these films or have a love for the IP, and then your critics who really don't care or don't like the IP, but they have to go watch it anyway. But the critics didn't care for it. They were below 50% on that, but the fans seemed to be generally happy about it. Let's go right into Valerie Monroe from Entertainment Weekly, who says, so should you take your kid to see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? I'm not recommending that you do. This movie will not enrich your child's worldview. Okay. Henry Sheehan from The Hollywood Reporter says, the one subplot that could have been milked about a young friend of O'Neill's who falls in with the gang is handled indifferently and fails to supply much in the way of a youthful identification figure. Gene Siskel from the Chicago Tribune says, the cynicism of the motion picture industry will be apparent to any child who is exposed to the many product plugs for a nationwide pizza delivery company. Michael Wilmington from Los Angeles Times says, as a movie, Ninja Turtles would make a better cereal. It looks like it needs a little milk and a mother wit poured over it. Something to make it snap, crackle, and pop. Carrie Rickey from Philadelphia Inquirer says, Ninja Turtles is cluttered and flashy. In terms of plot, there's not much flesh on its bones. Then Dave Kerr, it seems like he likes to be called Dave, from the Chicago Tribune, says the results are lively and funny enough to keep adults enthralled as well as kids. Jay Boyer from Orlando Sentinel says, what troubles me about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is that it's basically an exploitation movie aimed at younger children. Okay. Owen Gleiberman from Entertainment Weekly says, a dismal, tedious affair. Variety staff from Variety says, scores with its generally engaging tongue-in-cheek humor. And then Lloyd Bradley from Empire Magazine says, a well-rounded, unpretentious, very funny knockabout adventure subtly blended so that it's fun for all the family. And that is what what the critics said about it. Let's see how far off we were. I've got 30% positive and not even up to the 46% that we have for the tomato meter there. Anyway, moving along to first time or 50th. What I have to say about this movie is, I couldn't tell you the first time I saw it. I remember having it as a kid, having it on VHS. I was a huge Ninja Turtles fan. I had all the Ninja Turtles toys. I still have all the Ninja Turtles toys. I don't have all the toys that I used to have, but I have a lot of them. For whatever reason, they've just been held on to in bins and stuck in a closet. At times, the younger ones around the family, I will get them out and fiddle with them a little bit. But yeah, I had all the toys. I loved the animated show. I used to watch that over and over and over and over again. I didn't watch this one as much as a little kid, even though I did watch it. But over the years, I saw it plenty. I couldn't tell you how many times I've seen this movie. I couldn't tell you how many times I've seen Ninja Turtle stuff. It's kind of like everything Ninja Turtles to me runs together. So this could have been literally, it's hard for me to even like try to take a guess at how many times I've seen this, because I have always been such a big fan of the Ninja Turtles franchise that it's like it all runs together. I know that I definitely have some feelings about the sequels, which we'll talk about in a second, but this was always a favorite, and I mean, if I was going to throw a number at how many times I've probably seen this film, I'd say between 30 and 50 as far as sitting down and watching it all the way through over the years. if not more. But yeah, this is far from a first watch, and there you go. Moving on to be continued. Would a sequel work for this film? And if there was a sequel, or if there is a sequel, should there have been? This first one was so good at being what it was meant to be. It was kind of like the same thing that happened with, I don't want to get too much into another franchise, but in the same way that Batman did its thing in '89, it went dark, and people liked it because of the camp that came before. And then they thought, well, we've got to, you know, lighten it up a bit. They did the same thing with the Ninja Turtles. The first movie was really solid, and the second one came around, and it was like they had to throw a bunch of extra, like, over the top silliness in it, and I don't think that the suits were quite as quality. There was just a lot of stuff about the sequel. I think as a kid, like as a young kid, I really liked the sequel. Probably the initial sequel, The Secret of the Ooze or whatever. I probably liked that better as a young kid because of I remember the other two monsters that were created, and I think was the second one, the one that had the Vanilla Ice song, Go Ninja Go, or whatever it was called, Ninja Turtle Rap, something like that. But I gravitated as a young kid towards that one, just like in Back to the Future. I gravitated towards the second one a little bit more as a little kid. But as I got older and started to appreciate films for what they were, or the larger, appreciate films in a different way, I guess I should say, than I did when I was a kid. I find that the first one is definitely the best and my favorite, and they got progressively silly. The third one was the costuming, or the suits were just like really not great at all. They did it was time traveling, and it was just really weird. I think like the second one's okay. The third one got real weird. I'd say we could have done without the third one. The second one is okay enough to throw in there. I think like there was nothing wrong with it. It was just a little bit too clearly they were trying to sell toys and do all that kind of stuff, and it was a little bit too much. Now as an adult watching, I realized, oh man, they like went really goofy silly on that, where they didn't do that on the first film. The third film, I haven't really seen it a whole lot. I remember a little bit about it, but it's not a favorite by far, and I'd say if they had never made that third film, we'd have been okay. I don't know what it made. I don't know if it made any money at the box office, but anyway, from a sequel perspective, yeah, the second one was okay. I'd say we could have done without the third one. That's my opinion. Maybe we'll talk about those eventually, and you already kind of know some of my feelings about them, but maybe we'll dive into those at a later point. All right, with that down, before we jump into the final segment, today's episode is brought to you by PrepStartsNow.com, your go-to spot for emergency and outdoor preparedness. If you're like me and you'd rather be prepared and not need it. All right, before we jump into the final segment, today's episode is brought to you by PrepStartsNow.com, your go-to spot for emergency and outdoor preparedness. If you're anything like me, you'd rather be prepared and not need it than need the essentials and not have them. From 72-hour emergency essentials to camping gear, car emergency essentials, multi-tools, first aid, and even home gardening supplies as you start to grow some of your own food, they've got you covered for all of it. And the best part is, as a listener, you can use the promo code Rewatch to get a 15% site-wide discount, and you'll also be helping out the show as they give us a small reward for your business in the process. Head to PrepStartsNow.com/discount/Rewatch. That's PrepStartsNow.com/discount/Rewatch, or simply enter the code Rewatch at checkout and get prepared today. All right, before we get into the final segment, we'll do a little quick recap. I was watching this film and thinking about this recap portion and thinking, like, it's going to be kind of hard to recap. And we can get into a little bit more of why I feel that way when we get into actually the final verdict and start grading these, and I can tell you a little bit more about my feelings about things. But there's some things that make it difficult for me about giving a recap. But essentially, the film starts out and you don't meet the turtles yet, but you meet April O'Neil, and she's a news person, and then she's attacked by some bad guys, and she ends up being saved by the turtles. And eventually, through a series of some things, she is brought back to, well, Raphael, and gets into it with the rest of them, goes out and does his thing, being Raph, and he runs into Casey Jones and ends up saving April again, and he takes April back to the turtle lair, and they end up building a relationship with April, and while they are taking her back, I guess, to her place or something along those lines, all right, before we jump into the final verdict, I'm going to hit a real quick recap, but it's not going to be much of a recap because I realize watching this is going to be kind of a difficult recap for me. And I'll get into that when we get into the, some of these categories and I explain my feelings about things. But for a quick recap, this movie is essentially bad guys, good guys, turtles who are exposed to radioactive ooze stuff, cause them to mutate into this humanoid form. Same with Splinter, their master who taught them all this karate, because Splinter is, was around Homoto Saki, or whatever the guy's name is, that he watched some other people do kung fu or jiu-jitsu or whatever, and because he, as a rat, watched this, he learned to do this, and then as he became more anthropomorphic, or whatever you want to call it, he then trained the turtles, who also became such. Anyhow, this movie is basically, they're the good guys, Shredder and the Foot Clan are the bad guys, and you have bad guys kidnap one of the good guys, and then good guys are trying to find one of their guys that got kidnapped the whole film. And through the course of the film, they come across April O'Neil and Casey Jones, and then they become, all pals. And there's a kid who's part of the Foot Clan, or not part of the Foot Clan, but part of this sort of underground kid crime ring thing that Shredder and all them are running, and so it's because of the kid that they end up finding Splinter. But yeah, it's like really hard to just like recap this film. That's it. It's, which is, again, it's a knock on the film, to be honest with you. That's what it is. I mean, it's bad guys kidnap good guys look for their guy the whole time so they can get him back from the bad guy. And some fighting in the process. I don't know how else to say it. And I feel really weird saying, like, that's the recap of the movie. But, I mean, that really is the recap of the movie. Like, it is. It's actually going to have me... It's going to cause me to change my score of this in real time as far as story and plot goes. So... because that's the only recap that I can give you, which feels really silly that I even said any of that. I'm just going to go right into the final verdict because I don't know what else to say about it. And I want to get into exactly why I feel that way. So, let's get right into story and plot. Is the narrative compelling and coherent? Does it still hold up on a rewatch? Not really. You know what I mean? Like, I like this movie, or like, I'm drawn to this movie because of the IP. I'm not drawn to this movie because of the story. And the story is really, there's just not a lot there. There's not a lot you're working with. It's from a story perspective, from a, you know, it's just from a, this happens and therefore this and then therefore this, and then when like we're continuing the story along, and people are like, it's like, it's sort of just, I don't even know how to describe it. There's a lot that happens, while at the same time not a lot that happens. And I feel weird saying that, but if you've seen the movie, you should understand what I'm talking about. Like, that doesn't mean I don't like the film. I'm not saying I don't like the film. I'm saying that there's a lot that happens, and yet not a lot that happens. So, like, if I try to, like, pinpoint, like, some, like, major thing in the film, it's just like a bunch of little stuff happens throughout the whole film. There's no major, like, moments. There's no, I don't even know how to describe it. And because of that, dang, I'm really going to do this, ain't I? Let's see. I'm going to have to drop the score of what I was giving it, which is, like, I hate to do, but I'm going to do it. Like, story and plot, there's just not a lot there. There's not a lot there. There's not a lot to work with. There's not a lot that like pulls you in, and like it's just Ninja Turtles. Like, I feel like honestly, now that I think about it, I feel like there's more story to like the first 5 episodes of the animated TV series, the old animated TV series cartoon thing that came on. Like, I feel like there's more narrative there than there is to this film. So, story and plot, I'm gonna give this one a 3 out of 5. We're talking right there in the middle of fair. It's just adequate, but nothing special. Like, there's just not. It didn't give you a whole lot. It's not terrible, but it didn't give you a whole lot, and it doesn't. That's all I can have to say about it. Anyway, yeah, story and plot, 3 out of 5. Characters and performances is going to be next. Are the characters memorable and well acted, or forgettable and flat? Now, on this side of things, again, this is where it changes a little bit, because for me, the characters and performances are pretty solid. I mean, like, especially knowing everything that went into this, where you have stunt actors inside of these suits who did a fantastic job, all right? And these are performances. They may not be, the dramatic acting performances, but, like, knowing what went into this, knowing how these guys were inside of suits, and they were having to act out not just the action, but they were having to act out the dialogue, while someone else from a distance was remotely controlling the animatronic face. There's like a whole lot that went into this. But I think, like, all of the guys there's a very unique voice and sound to everybody, particularly Corey Feldman as Donatello. But there's these, like, just like in the TV show or the animated TV series, there's very unique voices that I'll forever remember as those guys. These guys are the same way. But I think, like, from a performance perspective, there's wonderful stunt performances and wonderful inside the suit acting to allow, like, you don't think about it. You don't consider, like, I never considered as a kid that what was going on with people in these suits and fake heads and someone else remote control working the animatronic face while the person, it's like, it's like, whose line is it anyway, where, one guy's got his arms wrapped around the other and one dude's talking, but the other guy's hands are the ones doing all the gesturing for the person talking, and you're having to follow it. Like, it's really incredible if you think about the way this was made, and the way that they did that. And I'm sure that there was a lot of, take after take after take after take to get it right. But from a character and performance perspective, I'm doing, I guess, on the fly again, I'm changing this. I'm going to say, because of the difficulty of things and what they were able to do and the enjoyable nature of these turtles on screen, I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 5. Moving right along to pacing and entertainment value. Were you entertained the whole time? Did the movie keep your attention? Does it feel too slow, too rushed, or just right? Pacing and entertainment value. For me, as I watched this film, I found myself a couple of times getting a little bored. And I feel, I hate to say that. I hate to say that because this is like a movie I've always loved. But like when I'm watching it from like to think about these things a little bit extra as I watch, rather than like, I don't always watch films and just like think down this list of stuff, but like watching it on this occasion for this reason, I found myself going, I'm kind of, there's some of the down moments. I'm getting a little bit bored here. And I hate that, but that's just like the way it is. So were you entertained the whole time? I don't know. Probably not. Did the movie keep your attention? Not enough really to excite me. Does it feel too slow at times? Ever too rushed? No. I think a lot of the movie is just right, but there are some moments that just feel too slow to me. So pacing and entertainment value, I'm giving a 3.5 out of 5. Moving along to dialogue and quotability. Are there iconic or memorable lines? Do people still quote it? Does the dialogue feel natural or cringy? Are there iconic or memorable lines? Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of, I would say, iconic Ninja Turtle lines in there. The way that they, the cowabunga and tubular and like the line that he says to the pizza guy at the beginning when he's like, I can't even remember the actual person that he's quoting or whatever, that's supposed to be this wise man, but maybe he says like wise man once said or something like that. But the guy's like, hey, you owe me. He delivers the pizza and it's like 2 minutes late, and he says, you owe me $2 or you owe me money or something. And he's like, a wise man once said, never pay full price for late pizza. The movie is very much in that vein of the Ninja Turtles, cowabunga, I love pizza, we're silly teenagers having fun. So like because of that, like I think the dialogue is fitting for the movie. It's not like, it could have been much, much more silly, and it could have been much, much worse. I think they tried to be as serious as they could with it, and there are some iconic lines from this that are just, your general kind of iconic Ninja Turtle phrases and lines and things. And do people still quote it? I mean, I don't know about all that. Does the dialogue feel natural or cringy? It feels mostly natural, not too cringy. I mean, even the cringy stuff is like the Ninja Turtles being the Ninja Turtle stuff, for the most part. Like everything else is not that bad. So from a dialogue and quotability perspective, I'm going to give this a 3.7 out of 5. Let's move on to soundtrack and score. Does the music enhance the film or date it? Does it elevate the emotional tone of the film or feel out of place? Is it iconic or generic? Does the music enhance the film or date? I think the music kind of dates the film a little bit, because like there's no music in this film that's like timeless or iconic by any means. So I think like the music definitely dates the film. You listen to the music, even like the music that plays, that's like that ninja, shimmery stuff is very of the time, very late 80s, early 90s. And even the kind of like theme that you hear that's played with the horns, it's either a synth or horns, but it's like that. It's like I don't know that it's stands out as being Ninja Turtles, but it's also a very used, like, consistent theme, or consistent whatever throughout the film, a consistent riff or whatever you want to call it. But I think that the music does date the film, and I think there's times when I don't know that it elevates the emotional tone of the film. It doesn't feel out of place with the film, but it does date the film. I don't think it's iconic, but I don't think it's super generic either. I think it's like sort of very fitting for what it is. It's kind of hard to sort of really pinpoint how I feel about this, to be honest with you. It's kind of just like middle sitting to me. So soundtrack and score, I think, is like right there in like a 3 out of 5. It's nothing special. It's not iconic. It does date it a little bit, but it's also like very fitting, and there's a little bit of like memorable stuff in there that's just enough to kind of hang on, enough that I can remember it today sitting down with you. So, or not sitting down with you, but sitting down talking about it. So anyway, I'm going to give the soundtrack and score a 3 out of 5, right there in the middle at fair. Moving on to cinematography and visual style. Is it visually engaging or stylish, regardless of effects budget or genre? Do the camera work and effects still impress, or do they look dated and clunky? This is where I think this film really shines. Cinematography. Let's look at this. Okay, so is it visually engaging or stylish? I think there's some very, like, I love the way this is shot. I love the way that they chose to go with this. I love the fact that they went with, like, this is 1990. So it's hard to say if Batman 89 had any effect at all on this, because by the time 89 came out, they had to have been shooting this, possibly done with it. Who knows? Possibly done shooting. So I don't know what effect it might have had, but this was a time in that late 80s, kind of late 80s into the early 90s, where they were leaning a little bit into a little bit more gritty stuff on this kind of content, rather than like there was just a lot of camp that come out of the previous era. And you got things like, the Ninja Turtles themselves, from a comic perspective, were much darker. Even Batman, you had stuff in I think it was like the 80s. Frank Miller's Dark Knight comes out, and he tries to like get away from the kind of super comic booky stuff, that kind of over the top, colorful comic booky stuff, and get into something a little bit more dark and gritty. For whatever reason, I don't know if Batman had any effect on this or not, but this was a much darker film, especially like we already established kind of in the earlier read that I did on things. But the cartoon was very cartoony, obviously, and the comic book was, I think, a little bit darker, and they went with this, and I felt like they struck a good balance. But the visuals on this, I think, are fantastic. I love about so much stuff is they heavily leaned on natural light, and even if they were using other light, it was accepted as natural light. But there's so much backlit stuff, backlit through a window, but not front lit. So so much stuff on the outside where they're on the farm, and the turtles are lit from the back while they're out in the yard and in the field, and all. There's just some really, really good shots. Even the stuff that was supposed to be in the city. There's so much stuff in this film. As I watched it, I thought that would be that's a really awesome picture. You could pause that right now and screenshot it. That'd be an awesome picture. And there's a lot of that throughout this whole movie. So I think it's definitely visually engaging and stylish for it is. It was very kind of original in its style. I think that the camera work is great. Some of the shots are just like really fantastic, especially on like even the Shredder stuff. I mean, like, man, the way that they caught the like bloom and glare off of the metal of his suit, and certain shadow shots that they chose to like shoot for introducing Shredder as he walks in with that big old long shadow with a cape, but he walks into a section where his shadow starts to disappear. This is really kind of I'm gonna have to go back and watch that again, but I don't know how. I'm gonna have to figure out like how the shadow began to disappear, but it's a very long projected shadow as if he's being lit from behind, pretty low, but then all of a sudden, like that long shadow as he gets close to this certain area, that shadow starts to move back closer towards him and disappear. I'm not really sure how it happened. I'll have to go back and watch. But anyway, it was just like there's some really, really cool moments, some really cool camera moments, really cool visuals in the film. But the effects, I think, like this says, do the effects still impress, or do they look dated or clunky? Like these effects and the way that they chose to do things, the practicality of it all is like some of the best ever. To me, like stands the test of time. Obviously, you watch these and you know they're not real. You know, this is like, you can see at times where, like, I mean, the bend in the rubber or different things, like it's like clearly probably latex rubber. But man, the fact that they chose to put people in these suits who are like legitimately moving, I'm sure they felt very restricted, but they're doing all this stuff, doing all these moves. They've got remote control stuff doing the heads while this guy's trying to act. Like I've already talked about this, but like one guy's trying to act, one guy's trying to do the mouths, and I don't know how they did it there on set. I'd like to watch some more behind the scenes stuff. I don't know their process exactly. Like, was that the actual voiceover actor reading? Was it somebody else reading the lines and they had the voiceover actor come back later? And I mean, like, I don't know how they chose to do this one in particular. It's not always the exact same process. Because if you I'm pretty sure, like on what is it? Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I'm pretty sure what's his face, who did the voice of Roger Rabbit, was actually like on set doing the voice of Roger Rabbit while. I think I'm right about that. I could be wrong. Don't quote me, but I think that's the case. So it could have been the case with something like that here. But anyway, to get out of the acting, the characters, the performance of the creatures, I guess if you will, to get that out of them in the way that they did, and use the creature effects that they did to move the head and the mouth and the eyes and all that, even knowing, there's times where they had different heads and different stuff. So like for close-up heads and more relaxed shots and chill shots, like they had things more closed up underneath the eyes. But like for like the action shots and things where they were doing a lot of stuff and you weren't getting a lot of like super stills or having an opportunity to like really, really, really get a clear look at their face and stuff, they had these like kind of lower areas below the eye that was cut out so that the actors inside those heads could see out there and have a little bit more ability to see what they were doing. But anyway, like the cinematography and visual style for me is like, will always go down as just some really, really great work. From effects to the way that it was shot, to the way that they again used the matte painting stuff, to the way that they set things up. I mean, it feels like New York City. It's really, really, really well done. So from a cinematography and visual style category, I'm going to give this thing a 4.3 out of 5. Moving on to originality and creativity. Does the film feel fresh and inspired, or like something you've seen 100 times? Was the film groundbreaking or formulaic? Does it bring something unique? I think the film does feel fresh and inspired. Like, I know at the time it definitely was. This was a new thing. This was a new take. This was a different approach, I guess, than what people were used to with Ninja Turtles. But I know at the time it was fresh. And even like watching this now, if I watch like the Michael Bay produced Ninja Turtles that were, motion capture suits and all that. I don't think even Alan Ritchson was one of the guys that did that, that was acting in those, but it was all CGI. It didn't have the same vibe. Like, there's a vibe and a feeling that this movie gives you that it's like a realism that just feels so much better. But it's unique, yes, and I think inspired. And it's not like something I've seen 100 times. I think everything else after this began to start feeling like something you've seen 100 times, especially from the newer era of things. Once they got away from all this animatronic suits, or if they got away from the latex rubber suits and they got into animation and CG and all this, it just takes the life out of stuff sometimes. The film definitely was groundbreaking from many aspects, but definitely from the aspect of the effects, the way that the turtle affects although I would assume from the remote side of things, they were probably already doing some of this stuff with the Muppets with Jim Henson. Had to have been, because there's some scenes with the Muppets that, like, very clearly they're riding a bicycle down the street, or I don't know if that was before or after this, or when some of these Muppet movies come out, but I know I can think of scenes in my head where, like, they're literally riding a bike and there's nobody around. And this is, like, before we were, like, heavily painting people out of stuff with CG and green screens and green suits and all that. So they were probably already doing this remote control movement, built-in servos and all this kind of stuff to allow for movement for creatures, even from the perspective of the Muppets. But this was definitely a unique thing and a groundbreaking thing. So from originality and creativity, I gave this a 4 out of 5. Theme and message. Is there a deeper takeaway, and does it explore ideas that resonate today? I don't know. I mean, like, this is just like your typical good guy, bad guy thing. And, like, it feels cliche in many ways, but, like, I mean, if you want to say there's, like, a message, it's very, do good, help people, take care of your family, stick together, like, whatever. Like, that's kind of like all I can really give you out of this. And if you want to call that, a message, that can be a message, or a theme, maybe, if you will. Don't leave anybody behind, whatever. Always go the extra mile to, like, take care of the people you love. I'm not trying to say all that to sound silly or to be condescending or whatever. I'm just trying to, like, think, like, oh, okay, can I really say much about a theme and message for this Ninja Turtle film? I'll give it a 3 out of 5. I'll say it's, like, fair. There's nothing special in the message other than, like, yeah, what I just said. Theme and message, 3 out of 5. Moving on to cringe factor. Are there any jokes, any effects, or moments that haven't aged well, or are always bad, moments that make you wince now, campy, cheesy, bad effects, outdated jokes that aren't funny, etc.? Okay, so the first thing that comes to mind, as much as I talked about, like, the fantastic nature of so much of these effects, there's a moment in this film, and if you're watching the video podcast on, like, YouTube or something, I will try to put the picture up right now, but there's a shot in this film that if you watch really closely, where somebody says something funny, and it's either Donatello, I think, or Leonardo, like, leans back into the doorway and laughs, and so the mouth of the turtle comes open, and not only do you see the turtle's mouth open, but then there's, like, a human mouth inside that mouth that's open, laughing, and it's really creepy and freaking weird looking. But which is, like, makes me think of, like, bad effects, or, like, moments that, like, weren't caught, which is kind of like, ooh, that's a little bit cringy, that's a little bit weird, that shouldn't happen, maybe you should have caught that. But I mean, like, The jokes are turtle jokes. You would expect it. They're supposed to be teenagers. They're silly. All the moments that are, they're not jokes you shouldn't tell. There's some corny stuff, but it's not necessarily cringy from a joke perspective. The effects, that's the only part that I would really say is like cringy, because for what they were doing, it was like all super fitting. Even the puppeteering of Splinter, the way that they kept him, mostly from the waist or chest up, is mostly what you saw. I'm glad they did that and didn't put somebody in a suit. It felt a little more like right for this film. I mean, the movie is what the movie is. It's hard to go. It's a movie about turtles, about Ninja Turtles who became upright walking teenage turtles that are ninjas and mutants. So how are you going to go there's no cringe in that? I'm putting this at a 3.5 on the cringe factor scale. It's not cringy, but it's not leaning over enough to be even nothing. I wouldn't put it down at even the 50-50 mark. I'm going to put it a little higher and say 3.5 out of 5 because, again, I think they did the best that they could at the time with a movie that is about Ninja Turtles. And with all that said, 3.5 out of 5 feels right for me. I'm going to move on to nostalgia and rewatchability. Does it hold up to your memory of it? Does it still matter today? Is it timeless, or has it aged poorly? Does a rewatch ruin the magic, and would you honestly watch it again? Does it hold up to your memory of it? Yes and no. So, it holds up to my memory of it in that, it is exactly as I remember it. It's exactly as... the last time I watched this movie was probably about 2 years ago, maybe. Before I watched it for this. It still holds up to my memory of it. It comes across the same way. I take it the same way. When I watch it, I have a certain appreciation for it, and that's always there. But watching this from the perspective of doing this actual episode over it, I noticed that I got a little bored in moments where I just didn't really pay attention as much to it before. There's some down moments I didn't really care for, and I noticed that there's not really a solid story here, and there's kind of there's just not a lot of real meat in it. I mean, you may not expect there to be because it's Ninja Turtles, but there's not a lot of meat there. I would say the newer Ninja Turtle movie that Michael Bay did, that had Megan Fox, I would say that first film had a better story than this did. They at least told the story better. Anyway, but it holds up ish. Does it still matter today? I think yeah. You can't look at a movie like this that it matters from an effects perspective. It matters from a practicality perspective, from a how to do things practically. It matters. And when you want to do, even thinking back to it's Stan Winston that would do Jurassic Park, but even they are doing now they're doing remote control dinosaurs on the sets of Jurassic Park, and they are remote control animatronic dinosaurs. Where used to they were more directly controlling them, hands-on. I'm pulling this thing on this end of this, which is connected down there, kind of deal. Now they're doing a lot of remote stuff, and they weren't, I don't think, doing that as much with it was all cables. In Jurassic Park, they're all hooked up to cables, right? So you've got these big old long cables coming out of all these animatronic stuff that you saw in Jurassic Park, and this is pre 1993 Jurassic Park, and this is before all that stuff. It's still remote controlled. Again, I can't tell you how much I love the fact that this is just the cohesive nature of the acting and the effects work and all that kind of stuff. It's just really, really fantastic. So I think it matters today because, like, I think this was very groundbreaking in that, like, from that perspective, and it's something that probably, like, very much was influential on things that came later. I think that this, as a Ninja Turtle movie, is timeless. I don't think, like, maybe all time is timeless. There's some things about this that are timeless, but I wouldn't say this is just like an all-time timeless movie. I don't think it's aged poorly at all. Like, I think this film it still looks great, and the only real complaints that, like, I have of this film would be, like, as a person watching it, my only real complaint is, like, there's not really a super meaty story, and the music is of the era. Like, and that's not really complaints, because I don't really expect a lot out of this. So, like, this movie just is what I want it to be. Does a rewatch ruin the magic? No, not for me. Would you honestly watch it again? Yeah. I mean, like, it holds a special place in my heart from a nostalgia perspective. Nostalgia and rewatchability, with everything that I just said, I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5. Like, this, as a big Ninja Turtles fan, this is, like, early on in my developing a love for Ninja Turtles, and this movie will always have a special place in my heart for many, 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 many reasons, and I still enjoy and have a good time sitting down and watching it every time. So yeah, nostalgia and rewatchability, I'm giving this a 4 out of 5. So let's jump into the verdict scale here and see what how we're rating this. Anything that comes in at 10 to 20 is a return. Anything from a 20 to 30 is return worthy. So we've got an absolute return worthy, unless, maybe you're a little nostalgic about it. Then we've got 30 to 40 is a leans rewatch, but maybe you can debate it a little bit. And then 40 to 50 is certified rewatchable. I'm going to go back down through this list and see where our score comes out. Story and plot, I gave a 3 out of 5. Characters and performances, I gave a 4.5 out of 5. Pacing and entertainment value, I gave 3.5 out of 5. Dialogue and quotability, I gave a 3.7 out of 5. Soundtrack and score, I gave a 3 out of 5. Cinematography and visual style, I gave a 4.3 out of 5. Originality and creativity, I gave a 4 out of 5. Theme and message, a 3 out of 5. Cringe factor, 3.5 out of 5. And nostalgia and rewatchability, I gave a 4 out of 5. And that brings the final score to 36.5. And because anything from 30 to 40 is a leans rewatch but debatable, this one falls at 36.5 at leans rewatch. And which feels right to me. Like, if you are a huge Ninja Turtles fan, you could argue that it should be, certified rewatchable. To me, this is certified rewatchable. To me, I can watch and watch and watch this movie. I have my entire life. But as I do this, and I've said this many times already, while I am completely and totally subjective, I try to be as objective as I can in my subjectivity, and truly give it the score per category. So I can tell you how I feel about the movie, right? I can tell you, I love this movie. This is Ninja Turtles. This is 1990. This is the first live-action Ninja Turtle. I've loved this movie my entire life. I can tell you that. To me, this is certified rewatchable. But then, when I get down to the nitty-gritty and start looking at these categories, I want to be true to the category. So I can tell you my, overall feeling and thought about a film. But then, when I want to get into these categories, I want to be as true to the category as I can, and then just let the chips fall where they fall. And so, like I have said before, I would love for this to have fallen in certified rewatchable. But to me, the way that I've scored this, which is my subjective score, it didn't fall there. It's a little bit kind of makes me a little sad, but whatever. That's what makes this fun. That's what makes this interesting to me. That's what makes me want to do this and come back to it. That's what makes me go why do I want to talk about how I feel about a movie? What makes this different, or what makes this fun, or why I do this? Because I don't know coming in where things are going to fall. there's some films where I could think about it ahead of time and go like, I'm pretty sure. But like this film in particular, I was not sure like where this was going to land. And I just really enjoy doing this. I really enjoy kind of throwing it all. It was like throwing paint at the thing on just like going category by category and not trying to do it all at once and then going like, okay, what happens? Like, where does it land? For me, the way that I scored this thing, it didn't land where I wanted it to land, but hey, it landed at least not in any kind of return area. But yeah, like I love this movie. I'm very much a Ninja Turtle kid, and I have a special place in my heart for the franchise. And yep, not to ramble too much on about that, we're just gonna pull this thing to a close. 36.5 out of 50 for Ninja Turtles 1990 leaning rewatch. Thank you guys for tuning in to this maybe like 12th or 13th episode at this point. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had fun. I hope you like Ninja Turtles too, and I hope you're not mad at me for scoring this where I did and for letting it fall where it fell. I could have like jobbed this thing in here and like really tried to mess it up and get what I wanted out of it, but like that wouldn't be true to what the whole point of this is. If you are watching on YouTube and you want to comment below, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the film. I'd love to know how you felt about this growing up. Did you watch this movie growing up? Was it a big part of your childhood like it was mine? Or was it long before your time or way after your time? You can let me know. I'd love to hear if you're interested in having a chat about that in the comment section below the YouTube video. If you are listening on the podcast audio form and you want to chat about it, I generally post about all these on our Rewatch or Return Instagram channel. So if you've got Instagram and you want to jump on there, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to, have a little dialogue back and forth about it, all in good fun. And that is going to be all it for this week. We'll see you again next week.